Okay, I'm going to go ahead and record this now. That way I can just go ahead and get it out the way. So how did I perform in that debate? I got my points out, but I think that ultimately it did come off as a straw man, to be honest with you. The thing is that in a lot of ways, I didn't really prepare enough, and I just wasn't as prepared as I should have been. That's maybe a little bit of cope. I'm going to say it nonetheless. So I think bringing up the King David Hotel bombing, I think was a strong point. When he mentioned, of course, that they should have, when they, that the IDF should have basically martial law. And of course, he didn't use that term, but martial law in the Gaza Strip. And, should administer this territory and, of course, de-radicalization from anti-Semitism. I said to myself, this is not a way to create, docile people or whatever. You're going to create people that are going to learn to beat the system, and you're going to create more anti-Semitism. This is the same thing of sending someone to jail. When you send someone to jail, for the most part, or when you send someone to prison, excuse me, I know that there's a difference between jail and prison, but when you send someone to prison, it makes them a better criminal. Now, of course, people can say, oh, well, that's hogwash, this and that. But like I say, maybe I'm getting off topic. A lot of the thing is that for me, usually I just try to have a conversation. And maybe that's a little bit more cope too. But you know what? I'm going to use it. So I think that in general, I think that I had maybe 5 or 6 points that were good in terms of talking about. And I tried to bring up in there about the difference between, like I say, it sounded very Wignat, isn't it? The defense, we must secure the existence of, Jewish people. I was just like, oh, man. But of course, I was trying to show that, oh, well, they're all one people. No, they aren't. The thing is that they are different people that are, some are higher up than others, and that, yeah, the Ethiopian Jews that come in are not treated well. I could have brought up the riots that occurred a couple of years ago as well. But such is the way. I also could have found, I could have found a better argument. I could have brought up the aspect of the Native Americans, but I felt like we were already in several boondoggles as it was. So I felt like, okay, let's not do that. I really tried to stay on topic, to a certain degree. When he brought up, of course, Taiwan, I felt that I had to bring that aspect up. I was just using that as a side note. But the thing is that, I was a little more aggressive in this. I tried to be as respectful as I could, but I felt like, the real Zionism, his face of Zionism came out. The thing is that the reality is, as a lot of people see it, both left wing and right wing, is that the U.S. just doesn't have the cojones to be a world power. The U.S. does not have that. We see that inflation, we're all waiting to see how bad inflation is really, real inflation versus, what people say is going to affect it. And that the U.S. really doesn't have that amount of power. So this idea that, and of course he's just like, you're going to send nukes to these other areas. The thing is, I think that Israelis are a little bit smarter than to send nukes to whatever. And he let it slip, of course, that he said the Arabs, not Hamas, not Hezbollah, but he said Arabs specifically. And I'm just like, he let it slip, of course, that, now I let things slip as well. And I said Jews instead of, Israelis, this and that. So, like I say, I have my, I had my faults. I definitely did. I'm not going to say, oh, I won, but I'm going to say that it gave us some things to think about. I was going to bring up Meyer Kahana more, but I felt like that wasn't going to work out well. And I was going to bring up Baruch Goldstein, but I felt that that was bad taste, and I felt like that was working against me in a lot of ways. So that's why I tried to reverse a little bit. This is my excuse. People can say, no, that's bullshit. But I felt like that was the better option. I said, okay, let's not do that. Let's not mention Baruch Goldstein, this and that. Obviously, he's not going to agree with that. So let's go in this direction instead. Or maybe it was a pivot, whatever you want to say. I think overall, I tried to bring up at the end, which is what I really wanted to, which I probably should have mentioned, is that Israel being a Jewish state, and that Israel should embrace its Jewishness, which even people like Jason Unruh, as we've said in videos, as he said in videos, where Israel should embrace its Jewishness. And, I didn't talk enough about Neturei Karta. I probably could have mentioned that a bit more. But, like I say, wish in one hand and crap in the other. Such is the way, like I say. I'm trying to think of what else offhand, but I think that in general, this is a very heated subject, and I think overall it went better than it was, I think. There's not much else I can really say. You can take it for what you will. Much like the Israel-Palestine situation, or however way you want to say it, it was a stalemate, in my opinion. I think that I got a couple somewhat good points in there. Not great. I just feel that I could have talked more about the revanchism a bit more. I just try to use Russia as an example. I could have talked more about King David if I had known about that history and everything else, but I don't know. You can take this for what it is. I'm going to upload this probably tomorrow when I wake up, probably about, chances are probably 11 o'clock. We're going to see when we can schedule a part 2, and I'm going to talk more about the religious, talk more about the Haredi and the Hasidic communities within Israel a bit more, talk about that, and also maybe try to hit more on the point of, of Israel. Like I say, every country is against us. Well, in some cases, they did that on purpose, is that they invaded Lebanon, which led to the creation of Hezbollah. Hezbollah, I mean, who knows if Hezbollah would have been what it was, but Hezbollah didn't start out in, 1952 or something like that. It started out in 1982 because it was a reaction to the IDF coming into their land, because, the PLO were in, this country. He talks about sovereignty and whatnot, but of course, violating, Lebanese sovereignty is perfectly okay, I guess. Maybe that's a bad faith. I don't know. But I feel that is, I could have brought up that as well, I guess. Hamas, like I say, started in 1987. Like I say, Hamas is used as its point to defend what they're doing. To say, well, Hamas is there. And if Hamas wasn't there, then what? I could have also brought up, of course, the fact that Palestinians in Jordan are treated horribly. They still live in tents in many ways. The recent events that occurred with the prince in Jordan, kind of pointed to that. To be honest, I was awful on the point of the 3,000 missiles that were launched at Israel. I just basically retreated to his point because I didn't have a good response. So that's what occurred with that. I'm not going to sit here and blame anybody else. It's on me. It's on me at the end of the day. I think that sometimes people live in their fantasy worlds, this and that. I thought in my head, to be honest with you, just so I don't forget it, but I was going to give him the point of like the gray zone and how this and that. But at the end of the day, I just felt that it was what it was, right? I tried to bring up, of course, the history of Zionism and how it's treated, and that probably didn't work necessarily in my favor. I would also say is that I could have also made the mention, and maybe this will occur if a part 2 does come about. I'm not sure if I want to, but maybe I'll try it and see how it goes. Let me know in the comments if you think I should try for a round 2. I don't know. But the aspect of does Israel represent the Jewish people? And does it truly represent all the Jewish people? And I think that there's a lot of gray area there. So I will hopefully do some research in that and see how that goes. I should have pressed him more on the aspect of homosexuals being thrown off, buildings in Gaza, or, that homosexuals were killed amongst Hamas. I felt like I could have pressed him harder on that, but I felt like, all right, it's not even there. I think that's all I have to say. Those are the highlights that I can think of. If there's something else that, that I felt that I did bad on, or whatever the case may be, please, go ahead and leave your comments and say what happened. My voice is a little bit hoarse, as you can hear. I wasn't screaming this and that, but it's a lot of talking for me. It's a lot of talking that I normally don't do. I usually talk for maybe an hour at a time, maybe for 15 or 20 minutes at a time, not for, that length of time. So I think that's all I have to say. Please make your comments, and, doesn't matter if they were good, or whichever. I'll leave them up. YouTube will probably delete a few because that's the way it goes, but I myself will respond to comments, and you can say how well I did this and that. I just think that this is such a tough issue and such a divided issue that I think that that there's very little that we have control over, I think. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say. It went how it went. I feel I'll be honest with you, I do feel somewhat defeated, and I feel that I could have done better. But I think that I tried to make my points as valid as I could. I think that I'll finish up with this. I feel that I was stubborn on the points of mentioning the Ethiopians, this and that, and trying to mention the Deir Yassin massacre. I tried to promote it saying this is what Zionism is, and I feel that was I should have had, at least in my head, a better plan of where to go if that didn't work out, and I feel that was in bad faith and it wasn't doing any good. So I'll leave it at that. But it's whatever. I'll claim it as experience. As I say, I'll charge it to the game and go from there. So see you later, and goodbye.